Humanity expected demons from below and angels from above, but never would they expect their greatest threat would come from amongst themselves. It began subtly, like a shadow stretching unnoticed across a sunny field. In the early days, the cracks in humanity's foundation were dismissed as trivial, a few riots here, some whispered conspiracies there. But as the decades wore on, the cracks deepened, spreading like fractures through glass. No one could pinpoint the exact moment when things shifted. Perhaps it was the day governments lost their grip on truth, or when technology stopped serving its creators and began mastering them instead. Perhaps it was always inevitable. The first true sign came in the form of the towers. Black, monolithic spires erupted overnight in cities across the world. They were impossibly smooth, impossibly tall, and no one could recall seeing them constructed. They simply were. Scientists scrambled to understand them, philosophers spun theories, and the masses waited for angels or demons to pour from their ominous heights. None did. Instead, the towers spoke. Not in words, but in an irresistible pull, a low, thrumming hum that seemed to vibrate in the bones of every human alive. For some, it was a melody of power, a promise of transformation. For others, it was a dirge, driving them mad with whispers they could never quite decipher. People began flocking to the towers, walking for miles, for weeks, abandoning homes, families, and lives to stand in their shadow. It wasn't long before the first changes were reported. A man in Moscow who fell into a coma for 3 days woke with the ability to command storms. A child in Cairo walked into the base of a tower and emerged with luminous eyes that saw things no one else could. The towers, it seemed, were granting humanity something it had always craved, transcendence. But transcendence has a price. The empowered were not saviors. They were not heroes. They were human still, flawed, fragile, and fallible. What began as miracles soon turned into chaos. Power is a hunger, and the more humanity consumed it, the more it consumed them. Cities burned as rival factions formed, each claiming to have the only true right to the tower's gifts. Families were torn apart as ordinary people turned against the altered. And all the while, the towers loomed, silent and inscrutable, watching as humanity unraveled itself in pursuit of their secrets. In a quiet corner of what was once the United States, Lena crouched in the ruins of an old factory, the hum of a distant tower vibrating faintly through the air. She could still see it on the horizon, a dark needle piercing the sky. She hated it, hated what it had done to her world, but she hated herself even more for what she was about to do. Her brother's body lay slumped in the corner, pale and lifeless. He'd been one of the first to answer the tower's call, one of the first to be changed. For years, his power had been their salvation, shielding them from the chaos outside. Until it wasn't. Until his gift turned inward and began devouring him from the inside out. Lena's hand trembled as she reached into her pack, pulling out the small, crystalline shard she traded nearly everything for. It glowed faintly, pulsing with the same rhythm as the tower's hum. They called it resonance, a fragment of the tower's essence, capable of unlocking its gifts, or reigniting them in the dead. She didn't know what would happen when she placed it on her brother's chest. Maybe he would come back, stronger than ever. Maybe he would come back as something else entirely. Or maybe, nothing would happen at all. But in a world where angels and demons never came, where humanity was left to destroy itself, Lena would take her chances with the unknown.